And for part 2 of our beginner's guide series, we will be looking at pretty much one of the modes that will be by far the biggest part of the game. I would say probably 60 to 70% of the game is based around this specific mode, and that is the Nexus, right? This is the place where you configure your teams, where you make specific build for your teams so that they could successfully complete any other stage in this game by using upgrades that you obtain from the Nexus, right? So there are 2 Nexus modes at the moment, and each of these modes do also have their own branches. These are usually just for rewards as well as some modifications to the stage itself. So for example, if I enter the Nexus Phenomena mode, there's also 3 modes in that. So for example, one of them is Lab, and you can see that the only difference there is how the enemies will interact. So for example, in this one, whenever enemies die, they will enter this zombification mode, which allows them to live for just a couple more seconds and damage you additionally on top of that, right? However, each of these modes will also have a specific counter to them. So if you look at any of the tactical engravings I have, you'll see some of them will not have any, right? Because you do get to choose whether you want to upgrade them or not, but as you can see, some of them will also have counters to them. So if we quickly locate the decay domain here, this is a specific counter to zombification stages, and essentially, as you can see, at level 1, 2 and 3 it will give you certain buffs that will counter it. And to overview what the Nexus does is essentially after each run in the Nexus you will obtain a tactical engraving for one of your units, right? You can see that you can have several tactical engravings for all of your units. For example, you can see one right here and the one right here are for the same unit, right? You can have a total of 200 at the moment, right? So you will not be hitting the limit anytime soon. However, if you do branch out into too many teams, which personally I wouldn't recommend doing, you will see yourself stacking quite a bit of these, since essentially in order to maximize rewards in more of like milestone areas, you will want to have an engraving for each of the Nexus modes for each of your units, right? And just to showcase how it works, right, I'm gonna enter a Nexus Phenomena, right? We're gonna select any random unit that we have. I'm gonna go with my probably favorite unit at the moment, and that will be this guy, Cyrus, right? So how Nexus works is essentially, first of all, it will take some base stats and base skills that you have on your unit. So in this case, it will take these initial engraving stats, right? And it will take 2 of the skills that you have unlocked. I believe you might get a third one once you upgrade the unit further, right? I currently only have 2. And you can see both of them are at level 2, but as your essential level increases, you can see that the level of these skills increases as well, right? And these stats will be used to build upon that tactical engraving profile, right? So these will be the first 2 skills that you can select. These will be the stats that you start with, and on top of that you are able to select 6 memory traces in order to build upon that profile, right? And this choice is super important, and at first I would probably just recommend you to choose whatever has the biggest stats, right? Because in the beginning you will not be having a lot of these SSR engravings or memory traces, whatever they're called, right? Do keep in mind that I have been playing for around a month and a half, but also I am playing on a creator's account, which means that they have provided me with scrolls that essentially help me showcase all of these units. So I do have like a good 70 to 80% of the memory traces already summoned, right? But do keep in mind that a lot of this was done with these given loots. Do not worry, all of the creators will be on a separate server, so they will not interfere with you. But yeah, you can see that there's quite a lot of these. At first you will most likely have majority of the rare ones unlocked and couple of SRs, right? Eventually you will be getting into the SSR category, but even R and SR memory traces will still be just as good when it comes to starting out, right? So in general, you are able to select 5 memory traces of your own, right? And you are able to select one from either your friends list or your guild, right? So you can see a list of them. You can sort by the main stat, right? The more friends you add, the higher level your friends will be, the better it will be for you. So make sure to try and search for the highest level friends, and also on top of that, make sure to be that friend that is able to help out others as well, right? So for us, I'm gonna go fully random, right? I do have specific builds for some of them already, but just for showcase purposes, I'm just gonna select the strongest ones. A little tip on what you want to be selecting, right? So first of all, you want to be looking at the skills, right? The main criteria you want to be choosing on is the skills, right? Each of the memory traces will have one main skill, and they will have some Nexus skills that are a little bit weaker, but will still show up eventually in the run, right? So the main skill you can find in the Trace Awakening tab. You choose 5 or 6 skills, whether you are able to get the 6th one from your friends, and you primarily want to focus on the buffs right here. Now, I do want to mention that there are some units that can make use of a good chunk of these, right? But there will also be units that can, in the whole list, right? For example, if we take every single SSR memory trace that exists, they may only be able to use like 1 or 2 of those. So again, you really want to be planning which skills you take before you take them, and I would say in some cases before you even summon them, right? You will want to be choosing some of the units that you primarily want to focus on, and you slowly want to build up your collection of memory traces. First, you can start with either a unit or a memory trace that would work on a unit you really like, or go for ones that are more of a generally strong traces, right? So for example, this is a really good one. It works on all Echomancers, right? And as you can see, once the engraving's vitality is 750 or above, which isn't too difficult to get, you should be able to get a 750 vitality by using, in the beginning, I would say maybe 2 memory traces with vitality as the main stat. Later on, 1 might be enough, right? Again, you're really just looking for the main stats. The type here you see, right? So for example, it says this is a vitality type. The types are really just determined by the main stat that you get. So basic stats, you can see 42 out of the 70 stats are vitality. So basically it's just a vitality main stat. Ideally, you want to be looking at the base stats right here and choose the ones that were the best for you. However, pay the most attention to the Trace Awakening skill, because these ones, as the run goes on, these ones you are most likely to max out to level 5 to unlock the maximum level effect, right? There are also Nexus skills that will essentially work similar to Trace Awakening skills. Some of them will only level up to like level 3 instead of level 5. But in general, these will be a bit random, and because you are using 6 memory traces, some of them will have like 6 and 7 Nexus skills each. Trust me, you will not be able to get all of them. For example, if you are looking to get like 4 of these on a single unit, that will be super difficult, and you may need to play it hundreds of times before you get 4 of the ones you need, for example. So mostly put a lot of focus on the Trace Awakening, right? After that, if you do not have any useful Trace Awakenings, and that will happen on some units, right? Go for the base stats, right? Go for the base stats, because go for those stats. For example, if these are the 4 choices that you have, right? And you really don't have any single other memory trees that would fit for you, right? Go for something that is, for example, vitality, in order to make this a little bit easier to obtain. Because some memory traces will have these requirements. For example, some would require defense to be 500, 750, some will even require 1000, which is a bit difficult to achieve unless you are using like 2 or 3 of the same time. So yeah, focus on these skills, and after that focus mainly on the base stats. So once you start the Nexus run, finally I'm gonna showcase how it works, right? You are able to do it either manually or on order. What I would recommend is at first you can go full order for like the very first few runs. After that you do want to be adjusting your builds manually, right? Because again, order is pretty decent. You can select like to choose priority on some skills and stuff like that. But then again, those specific stats, for example, there will be a soft stat cap when you reach 1,000, right? For example, once you reach 1,000 on a specific stat, any gains further than that will be cut in half, and you don't want the order to be choosing incorrect choices. So after that, you will want to go manually on that, right? And just a general overview of how the Nexus works. So the first few stages will be fight stages, right? You will fight a couple of mobs. Usually these will be super easy regardless of the unit you are using, right? And after every time you beat a monster, you will get a choice to either stay on your current depth or increase the depth by either level 2, 3, all of that, right? The choices you get will depend on how far you have advanced. For example, at the beginning, I believe I wasn't able to skip 3 levels. I was only able to skip like 1 or 2. I think 2 might even be locked at that point, but now because usually I complete Nexus at like depth 12 to 13, I am able to get these higher jumps, right? And as you can see, every time you meet this interaction point, you will receive a lot of rewards. Some of the rewards will be stats. So for example, you can choose a stat and it will add to here. Some of the rewards will be skills. As you can see, this will activate one of the chosen memory trace skills. It will put at level 1, right? So at level 1, 3, and 5, you get an upgrade to the skill itself as well as skill points, right? You do want to be collecting skill points, but you don't want to overdo them, right? For my level, I currently collect around 3,000 to maybe 3,500, right? Because the more you collect, the more skills you will be able to activate. But from my experience, half of the skills you get along the way will simply be useless, right? Like remember when I showed the memory traces, right? You choose based on the Trace Awakening skill. However, there are also like 6 and 7 Nexus skills. So those Nexus skills, some of them will be useful for you, but a majority of them will simply won't fit your unit or won't fit your team. So you will not want to be spending skill points on those, right? So again, you can try to calculate how much skill points you will need for the main choices that you have, but don't always blindly pick skill point because you definitely won't need all of them, right? And yeah, just continuing with the fighting, again, you can see like it looks easy, right? It will be a little bit harder if you are starting out. But yeah, as you increase the depth, of course, the stats you get are gonna be bigger, right? However, you will also meet much more difficult enemies, right? And I just want to showcase, okay, this is another one of the choices. This will essentially buff the amount of stats you can get from this specific memory trace, right? So in the very first example, you've seen that you can get one of the 3 choices, right? It was 1 stat, another stat, or the 3rd stat. This will essentially increase the amount of stats you can get from those choices. So in cases where this will appear in the Vitality choice, the next time you choose Vitality, you will be able to get 10 extra Vitality, as you can see here, from that choice. I hope I am able to proc it, right? Yeah, so there we go. Just a showcase of this. You can see that sometimes not only you will be able to choose stats, but you will also get memory traces on top of that, right? And what this means is essentially when that appears, the base amount of stats you can get from one of the choices will be higher, right? And the less times you choose a stat, the more likely it is to get that picture. So ideally, you want to be targeting the stats you need, but on top of that, you also want to be prioritizing the ones that have the highest base gain. So for example, if I have, even on a defensive unit, right? If that defensive unit still attacks, for example, if I was given an option to do like 50 defense or 200 attack, you do want to be choosing 200 attack, right? Because that will first of all contribute the most to your overall rating, but on top of that it will also give you a very big boost to the stats, and on top of that there is a chance that you will get a higher defense gain from the next one. So again, you can see I am able to get a skill. This mental load is basically just a temporary mechanic which either makes the dungeon a little bit more difficult or a little bit less difficult depending on how much you have. In general, you won't need to pay too much attention to this because usually you will be able to keep it close to zero majority of the time, right? As you can see, Nexus also will branch out into several choices, right? So for the stats platform, it will mostly focus on the base stats. For the skills, it will mostly focus on improving your current skills that you have selected, right? So I usually go for the skills tab unless the unit really does not have too many options. Then I will go for something like a support, and then you will meet these boss dungeons, right? Well, not bosses, I guess we can call it mini bosses. If you have beat them before and you are several depths above a boss, you will be able to just automatically skip it, right? And you will only need to fight the harder ones. But yeah, as you can see, this is one of those skills where you get, this is not a Trace Awakening skill, this is just a regular skill, right? It does have 3 levels, but as you can see, this is one of those Nexus skills that you get, but usually you won't want it, right? And yeah, this is the first choice. Sometimes, actually no, a lot of times I would say you will be presented with 2 options, right? So for this one, if you are presented with 2 skill options, usually go for the one that is more important for you, right? So you can check them here and choose based on that. Again, as I mentioned, skill points, you will need a decent amount of them, but you definitely don't need too many. As you can see, I also don't think I mentioned this, the second number will showcase how much, or rather the first number will showcase how much skill points you need to fully max out all of the skills from this run, and the second number will showcase how many skill points you actually have, right? So for example, if I choose plus 82, you can see that this will get 82 skill points. Again, we get 100 skill points by itself, and you just choose based on the stats that you need. At first I would recommend choosing skill points, but later on you will notice that you will just have too many skill points, and in which case you should be going a little bit more for the base stats, right? So let me continue with the Nexus. Again, we get another fight. This is just a floor 7 fight, so it should be a one-shot, I believe. It is pretty much a one-shot. I can just ultimate them and it will completely wipe them out, right? And let's wait for the next stat buff. And yeah, as you can see, again, you are able to choose based on the stats right here. As I mentioned, for example, if you see that a picture has been added there, that means the base stat of this has been boosted. So once I select it, a good chance that the next time I select a vitality one, there will not be a base stat boost in there, right? Another regular random skill. Let's go for the skill platform again, I suppose, right? It should be fight. No, it's not a fight, this is just a stat. Again, a lot of these will be just single choices, right? So you don't have to think about it too much. I mean, you either choose it or you choose it, right? There's really no options other than that. But yeah, there is a story, you can play around it. I'm personally more of a gameplay person, right? I don't look into stories much, right? But yeah, basically you just go in with the idea that what you want to be building, right? One more tip I want to mention before closing this, right, is if you are met with a choice like this, where one of them is either skills or stats or something like that, and another one is a memory enhancement, I would recommend choosing memory enhancement while you are in the first like 3 to 4 stages, right? Basically, if you are like in the first half, this would be my preferred choice, unless the skill is like really important, right? If you are in the second half of the run, I would not recommend this, because this is more of a long-term investment. Every time you upgrade this, you are banking on being able to pick one of the base stats that are boosted by this memory trace at least like 4 or 5 times. So if you are towards the end, there's a good chance you will not be able to do that, and this would simply not be worth it. So I would choose a regular skill or some base stats. As you can see, I am able to max out one of the skills to level 5, so that skill will no longer show up as an upgrade. However, sometimes I do know that they may appear and they will simply give you a lot of skill points. But yeah, moving forward, again, mental load, don't pay too much attention unless this is like the perfect run and you are really struggling with it, because you will just get these single options where you are able to deduce it, right? So yeah, moving forward with it, this will give you some extra stats to equalize it, right? For example, if one of the stats is really behind, it will give you like plus 20, plus 40, sometimes it will give you plus 75, right? We're gonna go for this path. Eventually, as you can see, you will be able to choose the path where you have to go, right? And again, this depends on where you want to be moving when it comes to the advancements there, right? For example, if you are pushing one of the paths, you want to be moving towards one of the paths here. But yeah, I'm gonna pass some time, right? I'm gonna speed this up until we reach towards the end, and I'll showcase you the final fights. And there we go, we have reached one of the fights, right? This is not a boss fight yet. These regular fights will appear as time goes on, right? For example, if you remember, we saw one of them to be an automatic win, right? This is basically a part of that. I am at a high enough stage where I am simply not able to get the automatic win, which means I am gonna have to fight some of the units in order to pass, right? So the system pretty much works the same, right? The only difference is that you will have to fight a bit manually. I am at a low enough zone where I can order, right? If you are super high in the floor numbers, you won't even be able to order and you'll have to go full manually. I am at a number where I can play on order, but I do still have to proceed with the fight because it simply cannot grant me the automatic win. But yeah, I believe I should be able to pass this. I think I'm at around floor 12 or something like that, right? So yeah, we'll see how this goes, and we'll see what the further upgrades will be. And there we go, we are approaching the big fight, right? I did let order mode to complete it for a bit, right? Because again, like, I'm not looking to improve some of my engravings at the moment, right? Again, like, the server, the content creator server is closing tomorrow, right? So I'll have no use for this account, unfortunately. A lot of my units just got one shot. Yeah, I forgot to mention that this specific boss will essentially do a big jump in the beginning of the fight, which will usually one-shot a lot of the units if it is a little bit higher level, so you have to dodge it, right? I fully forgot about that, but again, whether I win or lose doesn't really matter. This is just for showcase, right? So usually boss fights will have 2 HP bars. You can see the first HP bar is draining, and second and any further HP bars will be marked by this little red dot above his HP bar, right? So for example, if he had 3 dots, that means he would have the current life as well as 3 additional lives that you would need to do. So I'm gonna put some tower buffs. We are gonna defeat the first life, it seems, without too many issues, but usually between lives, bosses will have an additional wave of units coming in, right? Usually those units will not be as hard as the boss fight itself, but they are annoying to deal with sometimes, so yeah, you're gonna have to manage that. Again, the boss fight is pretty self-explanatory, right? It's just a boss fight, right? You are fighting a big unit. Yeah, his damage is dropping. As you can see, he goes into damage immunity. He's gonna launch some waves of regular units now, which I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to deal with, because these are air type units and I have 2 fire type units on my team, right? So I'm gonna replace it. We'll see if they are able to deal with it. There is a good chance I will not be able to deal with it, so if I lose, oh well, I guess, right? So yeah, I'm gonna wait until the fight is closer to the end, and we're gonna see the finishing of the Nexus. And it looks like we are coming to a close to our fight. I'm not even sure whether I'm gonna win or not, because there are some lasers being shot. Hopefully I am. Right, I do want to mention one thing when it comes to bosses, right? Whether you win or lose in the Nexus, trust me, it is not a massive difference, right? The only difference between losing and winning against a boss will be some extra additional buffs that you can choose. So for example, if I win against the boss, we'll go back to the Nexus lobby and we'll see. Hopefully I'm able to turn off the auto mode in time. because I do have it on full auto. Yeah, so as you can see, if I win, I am able to get 5 rewards, right? If I lose, or actually now it's only 3 now, but they did change the values of the stats a bit. So usually when you win against the boss, you will get some extra rewards. If you lose, you'll get less rewards, or sometimes no rewards at all, right? Also, as you can see, as I mentioned, once you reach closer to 1000, you can see that you will be hitting a soft cap, right? The soft cap is 1000 and the maximum cap is 1280 at the moment, although I do believe it scales with the level. I may be wrong on that, right? And what happens is, until 1000, this is giving me full value, but after 1000, the remaining value is cut in half. So for example, if I was sitting at like 700, this would be giving me closer to like 300, maybe 350, right? This is just an achievement item, nothing special. And yeah, complete Nexus. Now, once you complete Nexus, it will give you a recap and you will be able to see the stats you got, right? As well as choose the skills that you want. If you're really not sure what to choose, usually the recommended choices are pretty good. They will choose the correct main skills, but they usually will screw up a bit on those random Nexus skills, right? But if you're looking for a specific build, I do recommend choosing manually. So first of all, the first 6 will be the main Trace Awakening skills that you chose in the lobby. So if you chose the correct 6 that you want on your units, you will want to be upgrading most of those. As you can see, this is the remaining skill points that you have, and this is the cost for each level. So let's say we chose the main ones, right? After that, you can go and browse through these, see which ones would fit you best, right? Some of these will work on specific types only, and you can see which units this will work on. So for example, the squares, right? All of the units showcased in here are of square type, which means you will be able to use them on that, right? And yeah, basically I'm just gonna choose whatever, right? This is just an example. You confirm your choices, and here's the basically the ending of what you get. You will get your engraving rating. This is just the total amount of rounded up stats, which will only be important when it comes to achievements usually, right? Don't pay attention too much in that. Depth level, again, mostly just as for general knowledge. What you want to be paying attention to is the stats, the overall score, which will help you achieving better rewards in some of the achievement stat checks, right? And the skills that you got. So yeah, once you enter this, as you can see, it is a small improvement from my previous best record by 24 score. You will get this, right? And now if you go into the lobby, you'll see that in the list of the Trace Awakenings, no, what are they called? Are they called Trace Awakenings? I fully confuse these names so much. Tactical engravings, there we go. You will see that it will appear in the list, and now you will be able to use it in a fight based on those stats. So if I go into any story mode, for example, one of the I've beaten already, if I select that unit, right, or specifically select that specific engraving, this will be the unit that will be my leader, and as you can see, it will mimic the stats that you have obtained in the dungeon, as well as the skills that you have obtained in the fight. I believe you can preview it by going to the leaderboard, then here, and then it looks like you cannot. Previously you were able to view it there, right? Unfortunately, I think you're gonna have to go through here, but yeah, you can see all of the skills here. Main skills, regular skills, you can check the level of all of them, right? And yeah, that's just the general way the Nexus works. Trust me, it is very confusing. It took me probably like weeks to fully understand how it works, right? And even then it was a little bit confusing at times. So yeah, hope this video helps you out. If you do have questions about the Nexus, whether you're watching today or when the game releases, feel free to drop them in the comments. I will try my best to answer them from the knowledge that I have playing this game for a few months. And yeah, that's all of it. Stay tuned for more Ash Echoes videos in the future, and yeah, peace.